did an amazing job while you were gone. But we always miss that. We always miss that. Thank you very, very much. Speaking of things we missed, I'm going to stop right here for a second because I got something to do. Oh, I forgot. Sorry, I got busy with my hands full. Good evening, friends. My name is Thomas, and I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic. And tonight, I have the pleasure of picking up where Pete left off last week with some more information on Step 5. But before I get into that, I just wanted to start off by saying Happy Mother's Day to all the moms that are in attendance here this evening. If you had kids like me, I know that's not an easy job, so we thank you for everything that you've done. One of the most cherished Bible passages for Mother's Day is actually Proverbs 31, 25 through 28. In the New International Version, it reads as follows. It says, "She is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. She speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of the household. Her children arise and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her." Now, if we look at the meaning of this passage line by line, it breaks down like this. In verse 25, when it's saying clothed with the strength and dignity, what it reveals is that a mother's true beauty and identity come not from outward appearance, but from the inner resilience and honor. And laughing at the days to come reflects a mother's deep trust in God. She does not live in fear for the future. In verse 26, she speaks with wisdom, refers to her words being thoughtful and rooted in truth as they are meant to build up others. She is not only wise, but gentle and faithful in how she communicates. Verse 27, she watches over. Here we see that she does not eat the bread of idleness. She is attentive, hardworking, and responsible. This does not mean being constantly busy, but rather being intentional and present in her actions in caring for others. Lastly, verse 28, her children arise and call her blessed. This is the fruit of her love and effort. Her family does not just acknowledge her, they celebrate her, doing their best to show her that the impact is lasting and visible. With that, to all the mothers that is here, it is my hope that all of the wonderful mothers of this world were celebrated in this form today. Now, I happen to know a whole lot more about Step 5 than I do mothers, so let's just get right into that. Step 5 states this, that we need to admit to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. And the two pieces of scripture that I chose for this evening's message was Psalm 32, line 5, and Galatians 6, verse 2. Psalm 32, 5 says this, "Then I acknowledged my sin to you and did not cover up my iniquity. I said, I will confess my transgressions to the Lord, and you forgave the guilt of my sin." This verse is part of the psalm written by David. It reflects on the burden of unconfessed sin and the relief that comes through honest confession. Before verse 5, David talks about how keeping silent caused deep anguish. "My bones wasted away," is the language he used. But once he stopped hiding and admitting his wrongs to God, he experienced forgiveness and freedom. Step 5 calls us to stop hiding our mistakes and to be honest with God, ourselves, and another human being. Psalm 32:5 affirms that we can come clean when we stop covering things up and start confessing. God then meets us with mercy, not judgment. It reassures us that spiritual healing and relief are possible when we no longer carry our guilt alone. And Galatians 6:2 says, "Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ." Now, this message is from Paul, who is writing to the Galatian church, urging them to live out their faith in love and mutual care. The law of Christ here refers to Jesus' command to love one another. Paul is encouraging believers not to isolate themselves, but to lean on one another, especially in times of struggle. So when we share our wrongs with another person, as step 5 requires, we are asking someone to help carry our burden, not to fix us, but to be a witness to our truth. Galatians 6:2 reminds us that the healing is not meant to happen in isolation. There is strength, grace, and love in being vulnerable with someone who walks with us in compassion. The reflection that weaves these two verses together is titled "The Freedom of Confession and Community." You see, there comes a point in every recovery journey where silence becomes too heavy to bear. We've spent years concealing our pain, hiding our wrongs, and convincing ourselves that we could carry it all alone. But step 5 invites us into something radically different, a courageous act of truth-telling. First to God, then to ourselves, and finally to another human being. Psalm 32:5 captures that turning point with startling honesty. David says, "I acknowledge my sin, and you forgave me of the guilt of my sin." In that moment of confession, David found freedom, not just freedom from sin itself, but freedom from the weight of the guilt that had been crushing his spirit. It was not until he stopped covering things up that he began to experience the healing mercy of God. But confession is not just about what happens between us and God. And that's where Galatians came in. It reminds us to carry each other's burdens, and in this way, we will fulfill the law of Christ. Step 5 leads us into the sacred space of community where we can speak our truth to another person who does not condemn us, but instead listens, holds space, and gently helps to lighten the load. This person, like I said before, is not there to fix us. They simply walk with us as Christ would. In that act, when we are making that confession of our step 5, when we are truly seen and still embraced, we begin to believe that healing is possible. We discover that vulnerability is not weakness, but it is actually the doorway to grace. We are not meant to carry our guilt alone, just as we are not meant to recover alone. God walks with us, and so do many others. And this is where the importance of Peter's message from last week comes into play. Picking the person who listens to your step 5 makes all the difference in the world. There has to be a layer of trust that's built in there. And this is why I always suggest the church, especially a church such as this one that is hyper-focused on recovery. Remember, the point of a step 5 is to get it all out, to leave no rock unturned, to the very best of your ability. If you do not trust the person you are talking to with your information, how then can you get honest? The fact is you won't. You may tell them some things, but you definitely will not spill it all. And if we listen to what is said in the program, it says it plain as day and how it works. Half measures availed us nothing. I'll repeat that for you again, friends. Half measures avail us nothing. So do not allow half measures to become part of the equation of your step 5. Give this step everything you have, absolutely everything. And if you take away anything from tonight's message, let it be this. In confession, there is freedom. In connection, there is healing. And in honesty, we meet the God who forgives and the community who helps us to rise. And I'm telling you right now, my friends, it's time to rise. It's time to take your recovery to the next level. Please join me in our closing prayers.